Every family has its history, and mine is no different. My gentle grandfather O'Leary was a cultural nationalist, a lover of the Irish language and of archaeology, while my maternal grandfather Dundon, imprisoned in British jails, had a more dramatic and arguably a more glamorous story. My mother's father, he ran guns and dynamite from, God, it's shocking even to hear myself say that, from Scotland, brought it over to Larne and down. And in his own written account of what he did, which I think was only done in order to apply for a military pension, he never talked about what he did in the war to his children. He said that the gelignite that they brought over was used during 1916 in the GPO. It often struck me, and maybe really in recent years, and having covered Northern Ireland for all that time, that pride, I suppose, that I had in my grandfather is beginning to give way to a feeling that really the problem with violence is that violence begets violence, and that 1916 and what happened after it was used by the Provisional IRA in Northern Ireland as a justification for their campaign and for what they did. We said, we're just continuing what happened back there. And it struck me that there's a big danger in glorifying violence and violent rebellion. And I found myself, Michael Collins was a big hero in our house. I'd read about 4 or 5 biographies of him by the time I was 18 or 19. But I found myself recently, putting that aside. The picture of Collins has actually been sold. And I'm much more conscious of that peaceful parliamentary tradition that my gentle old grandfather O'Leary stood for. And that is a tradition inherited from O'Connell through Parnell. And it's a part of our history and our inheritance that we don't hear enough about. I heard very little about that parliamentary tradition when I was a kid at school. And I heard little about John Redmond, who got Home Rule on the statute book. That whole story of our parliamentary tradition got sidelined.